Joining us now, Illinois Congressman Adam Kinzinger. He's a member of the House Foreign Affairs Committee. First, briefly to this French situation. A number of people stabbed to death. The French police say it is not terrorism, even though the suspect was on their terrorism watch list, and ISIS is claiming responsibility. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, they may have information I don't, because that sounds like a terrorist attack from what I've heard. Maybe they know something. I think, you know, it's important to note that anytime anybody just randomly stabs people, that it is an act of terror. Now, whether this is linked to ISIS or not, I guess will be up to the French. But I think, you know, the point is this is going to continue in Europe, and it's going to continue around the world for a long time because, frankly, we're fighting an ideology that has no regard for innocent life, has no regard for humanity, and actually thinks that somehow there's a God that's going to reward them for randomly killing innocent people. And frankly, if that's God, that's no God I want to follow.
Yeah, we have heard this message now from Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, the ISIS leader, who is urging his followers to fight on, despite the fact that their caliphate seems pretty shattered. What is the effect of that, do you think?
Yeah, it sounds a lot like Adolf Hitler kind of in the waning days of World War II. This is a losing organization, but again, it's still a mindset. So I think it's important for us to realize as a country that this is a generational fight. I mean, probably for the rest of my life, we're going to be battling terrorism in some form. But what's important is when you have a group like ISIS that claims that they are the coming caliphate, and land is very important to that prophecy, when you destroy that land holding and you take away their holdings, basically what you're saying, at least to those true believers, is this isn't the caliphate. Because if, in fact, this is what's prophesied by Muhammad, the U.S. Marines and Air Force and Navy and Army wouldn't be crushing your face and taking away your territory. And so with that happening, he has to send out this desperate message of this is just a test for followers. But in depriving land to these groups, we're depriving them of their recruits. But again, it's important to keep in mind there is going to be an ISIS 2 or an Al-Qaeda 3. We're going to have to stay on offense, frankly, probably for the rest of our lives.
Yeah, and the new commander in Afghanistan has essentially said that despite you know, the longest war that America has fought in its history, the Taliban is still a very potential opponent there, a very potent opponent, I mean.
That's right, and we've gotten used as Americans to kind of having this sudden end to a war. World War II, for instance, ended in this massive victory. And really the new way of warfare is going to be kind of these perpetual low-grade fights. And it's not fun. I wish it was different. But in the situation of Afghanistan, we're actually a very popular force there. So we're not an occupying force. The Afghan people want the United States to stay engaged. And we're going to continue to embolden the Afghan soldiers that are standing up against the Taliban as well. But if you look at, for instance, of course, South Korea and Bosnia, areas that we've been engaged in the past, we have a residual force that's there to embolden. But if you look at what happens, for instance, in Afghanistan, if we leave, you'll have a massive resurgence of the Taliban. The Afghan government will fall, and you'll have another safe haven, not just for Al-Qaeda, but ISIS.
The Russians invited the U.S. to talk about peace in Afghanistan. We said no. The right move, do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, there's concern that the Russians are actually supplying the Taliban. The Russians have no interest in the United States gaining a victory or the Afghan people gaining a victory. These are the same people that in Syria are bombing hospitals indiscriminately every day. So I think this is something, the president's right in negotiating with the Taliban. Every war ends in a negotiation to some level, but the Russians cannot be involved in this. They're a failing economy, a weak army, and not the future of this world.
Congressman Adam Kinzinger, Republican of Illinois and a member of